Jannik Sinner just won Wimbledon, again, back-to-back titles on center court. He beat Alexander Zverev, a man who lifted his first Grand Slam trophy 5 weeks ago, and has now lost to Sinner 10 straight times, 6-7, 7-6, 6-3, 6-4. 2 days before that, he beat Novak Djokovic in the semi-final, in straight sets, on grass.
Of course, I would have loved to lift the trophy, but he was better than me today, and he deserves to win.
He is 24 years old. He is the best player alive by a distance that isn't really debatable anymore. And I want you to try something. Try to describe him, not his forehand, not his ranking, him, the man. Tell me what he's like. Tell me what he wants, what he's afraid of, who he hates, what makes him crack. You can't. I can't either. We have spent 3 years watching the most complete tennis player of his generation, and the sport still has no idea what story it's telling about him. There is no villain arc. There is no redemption arc. There's barely an arc at all. Just a very quiet man, winning, and then winning again. And that vacuum, it did something. It got filled from the outside by something that had nothing to do with tennis. That's the truth about Jannik Sinner's dominance. It's not about how good he is, it's about the fact that nobody knows what to do with it. Let's get into it. To see it properly, you have to remember what we were used to. The last 20 years of this sport were not really about tennis. They were about characters. Federer was grace. The man who made a violent game look like calligraphy, and who came preloaded with a story you could tell a child in one sentence. Nadal was will. The fist, the grunt, the refusal, effort turned into a religion. And Djokovic was the intruder. The third man who walked into somebody else's love story and refused to leave, and spent 20 years being resented for the crime of being better. You didn't have to understand a tiebreak to pick a side, that's the point. The tennis was almost the delivery mechanism. What people were actually consuming was a 20-year argument about what kind of person deserves to win. We got so used to that we forgot it was a coincidence. And then the argument ended. And into that silence walked a red-haired kid from a German-speaking village in the Italian Alps, a former downhill skier of all things, who plays the sport like a man defusing a bomb. Nobody was ready for what that would feel like. Here's what he actually does, and it's genuinely extraordinary. There is no theater in him. Watch a full Sinner match and count the emotional events. It's close to zero. He does not scream at his box. He does not smash rackets. He does not stare down opponents. Does not milk the crowd. Does not manufacture momentum out of noise. He just hits the ball into the same square meter 300 times and waits. And it works.
I never played someone who played like Jannik today. I mean, I couldn't. If it was not an ace, the ball was coming back.
It works better than anything else on tour. Today, Zverev served like a man possessed for 2 full sets and could not break him, not once. And Sinner didn't respond by raising his voice. He responded by breaking once in the 3rd set at 4-3 and once in the 4th set at 4-3, and then walking to the net with a trophy. At one point, Zverev slipped and went down hard on his knee. Sinner walked over and helped him up. Then he broke him and won the set. That's the whole man, in one sequence. No cruelty, no mercy either. Just the next point. And it should be the greatest sports story going. The most efficient champion of the modern era, right at the start of what should be a decade of him. But watch how the sport actually talks about him.
Different players and challenges, and
I think there's a big gap between Sinner and everybody else.
Kind of sounds like my best is not good enough.
There's an odd flatness to it, respect without heat, admiration with nothing underneath. Because there's nothing to argue about. And a sport that spent 20 years arguing does not know how to sit in a room with a man who won't give it anything. So here's the part I think is actually true, and it's uncomfortable. We didn't wait for a story, we went and found one. In March 2024, Sinner tested positive twice for trace amounts of a banned substance called clostebol. The explanation, investigated, examined, and ultimately accepted at every level, was that it entered his system through massages from a physiotherapist who had used an over-the-counter healing spray on a cut on his own hand. The independent tribunal found no fault or negligence on Sinner's part. The World Anti-Doping Agency, in its own words, accepted that he did not intend to cheat, that he had no knowledge of it, and that he gained no performance advantage whatsoever. And then it appealed anyway, because under the rules, an athlete is responsible for the people around him. And the case was settled with a 3-month ban that, by the calendar, cost him no Grand Slam at all.
The issue is the inconsistency, is the transparency. We've been kept in the dark with Jannik's case.
I'm not here to relitigate that. Reasonable people found the whole thing unsatisfying from every possible direction, and they're allowed to. Here's what I want you to notice instead. That became the story. Not the game he built, not the strangeness of a skier's kid finding the flattest, cleanest ball strike in tennis. Not the fact that a 24-year-old is beating Novak Djokovic on grass in straight sets. For an entire year, the loudest thing about the best player in the world was a lab report. The sport didn't do that because it's cruel. It did it because it was starving. We had a champion who wouldn't hand us a narrative. So the first narrative that came within reach got picked up and used, whether it fit or not. That's the real cost of dominance without a story. Somebody else writes one for you. Now I want to push back because there's a lazy conclusion here and I don't believe it. The lazy version says he's boring, robotic, a machine, a metronome, a man with nothing inside him. That reading falls apart the second you actually look. This is a player who came through his first round at this Wimbledon in 5 sets with blood soaking through his sock, who 6 weeks ago in Paris in a heat wave held a 2-set lead and a 5-games-to-1 lead and lost. Collapsed in public on the biggest stage against a man he should never have lost to. That is not a machine. Machines don't have a bad afternoon in the heat. And that Paris match is the tell. Because for 1 week, the sport had a story about Jannik Sinner, the fragile one, the flawed one, the one where the wall cracks. And everybody devoured it.
We talk about 5 Grand Slams, but at the end of the day, these are 5 days. If I lose, it's still a great day. You know, playing a Grand Slam final, it's so rare and so special. You always need to work hard and to have moments like this.
He isn't empty. He is simply not performing for us. There is a difference, and we have almost completely lost the ability to see it. He came back from that Paris humiliation and won Wimbledon without ever mentioning it. Try telling me that's a man with nothing going on. I want to step outside tennis for a second, because I don't think this is a tennis story at all. I think this is a story about what we're actually watching when we watch anyone be great. We tell ourselves we love excellence. We don't. Not really. What we love is conflict. And excellence is just the vehicle we've agreed to strap it to. We need the fist, the feud, the rage, the flaw, the enemy. We need to know whose side we're on before we can enjoy the thing at all. And when someone arrives who refuses to supply that, who is simply, quietly, unbelievably good at the actual job, we don't sit in awe. We get restless. And then we go looking for something to hang on them. Every field does this. The quiet ones don't get remembered for the work. They get remembered for the one time something stuck. Jannik Sinner is the purest test of that instinct the sport has produced in 50 years. He gives us nothing but the tennis. And the tennis, it turns out, was never quite enough for us. So, what's the truth about his dominance? It's this. He is not waiting for us to catch up. He's not going to become interesting on our terms. He is going to keep hitting the same backhand into the same square meter until he has more trophies than almost anyone who's ever done it, and he is going to say almost nothing while he does it.
Kind of the king of the sport. And when we talked this time last year,
He's still the best player in the world. I do believe that.
And here's the better question, the one I actually can't answer. In 30 years, when the highlight reels get made, will there be anything to put in them? Will we remember an era? Or will we remember a very good player from a period we didn't know how to feel about because he never told us what to feel? Because the record book is going to be overwhelming, and the story is going to be a blank page. So tell me in the comments, is Sinner's dominance being underrated because he refuses to give us a show? Or is the truth just that greatness without drama has never been enough for anyone? Be honest. I have a feeling it's going to get interesting down there. And if you enjoyed this, a like genuinely helps the channel more than you'd think. Subscribe for more tennis deep dives like this one, and I'll see you in the next video.